"Don't embarrass me tonight," my husband whispered as he adjusted his tie and smiled toward our guests. I forced myself to smile back. Less than a minute later, he wrapped an arm around his assistant and laughed. "Honestly, she's the real reason this anniversary dinner even happened." The room filled with laughter. I stood beside our anniversary cake, holding the knife with shaking hands. Then the restaurant manager hurried toward us with a tablet pressed against his chest. "Mr. Brooks," he said, "there's something from the security cameras you need to see." Every conversation stopped. "My name is Natalie Brooks and I'm 36 years old. I work as an event coordinator for a local nonprofit organization. My job is simple to describe but difficult to do. I organize charity dinners, community fundraisers, and events that bring people together. When something goes wrong, I'm usually the person who fixes it before anyone notices. I've spent years solving problems quietly because I never cared about applause. I believed that if people enjoyed the event, that was enough. I also believed marriage worked the same way. Ethan and I met when we were both young. We celebrated birthdays together, built our first apartment into a real home, and dreamed about growing old side by side. 25 years together sounded like something people admired. From the outside it looked exactly that way. But somewhere along the road, Ethan stopped seeing me as his partner. He loved attention. He loved compliments. If someone praised him, he could remember every word for weeks. I was different. I preferred standing behind the scenes, making sure everything worked. I never cared who received credit because I thought we were a team. That became my biggest mistake. Little by little, Ethan began introducing my work as his idea. If I planned a family vacation, he told everyone he had organized every detail. If I hosted Thanksgiving dinner, he accepted every compliment while I cleared empty plates from the table. Whenever I looked surprised, he'd smile and say, "Does it really matter who gets the credit? We're married." At first I believed him. Then those moments became habits. Soon they became expectations. Friends started thanking Ethan for things I had done. Family members praised his generosity after I quietly paid for gifts, dinners, and celebrations. Correcting them always felt awkward, so I stayed silent. Silence became comfortable for everyone except me. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I didn't wear expensive clothes or chase attention online. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room. But I had something Ethan never understood. I paid attention. I noticed details other people ignored. I remembered conversations, dates, promises, and little changes in people's behavior. My work depended on observation, and over the years it became second nature. That quiet habit would eventually change everything. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to say something. If you've ever worked hard while someone else accepted the praise, I understand that feeling. If your family or partner made you feel invisible, you're not alone. Please subscribe if stories like mine remind you that quiet strength still matters. I'd love to hear your experience in the comments because so many people carry pain they never talk about. And before we continue, click hype. It helps stories like this reach people who need to know they aren't alone. When Ethan suggested a huge celebration for our 25th anniversary, everyone thought it was his romantic idea. It wasn't. The truth was much simpler. I spent almost 4 months planning every detail. I booked the restaurant after visiting 6 different places. I negotiated the menu so every guest would have something they liked. I hired the photographer, selected the music, designed the invitations, organized the seating chart, and even worked with the bakery to create a cake that matched the photo from our wedding day. Most evenings, I stayed awake after midnight checking guest lists and answering emails while Ethan watched television. Whenever I asked for his opinion, he'd shrug. "You've got this," he'd say. "You're the expert." I thought he trusted me. Looking back, I think he simply wanted someone else to do all the work. A week before the dinner, I overheard him talking on the phone. "I don't have to worry," he laughed. "Natalie handles everything." Those words should have made me proud. Instead, something about the way he said them bothered me. There was no gratitude, only expectation. So I ignored the feeling. On the morning of the anniversary dinner, I arrived at the restaurant before sunrise to make sure everything was perfect. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the quiet dining room while employees arranged flowers and polished glasses. I checked every table twice, adjusted centerpieces, tested the microphone, and thanked every member of the staff for their hard work. The manager smiled. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "this is one of the best organized events we've hosted all year." Those simple words meant more to me than he probably realized. For a moment, I believed the night might finally be different. I couldn't have been more wrong. Guests began arriving just before sunset, filling the restaurant with laughter, warm greetings, and the sound of glasses clinking together. I welcomed everyone, checked on the kitchen, adjusted the table settings one last time, and made sure every guest felt comfortable. Even on my own anniversary, I was still working behind the scenes. Ethan arrived almost 20 minutes late with his assistant, Lauren, walking beside him. He gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "You did okay," he said. Then he turned to Lauren with a wide smile. "You look amazing tonight." I forced a smile, but the difference in his tone was impossible to ignore. Throughout dinner, guests kept stopping Ethan. "This is such a wonderful celebration. You planned everything perfectly." Each time he accepted the compliments with a proud smile. Not once did he tell anyone that I had spent 4 months organizing every detail. After dessert, Ethan stood to give his anniversary speech. "I want to thank everyone for celebrating with us tonight," he began. The room applauded. He thanked his coworkers, his friends, and his parents. Then he looked directly at Lauren. "I honestly couldn't have pulled this evening together without my incredible assistant." Everyone clapped. Lauren smiled and thanked him. I waited for Ethan to mention me. Dad, he laughed. "If I'd depended on myself or even Natalie, this dinner would have been a complete disaster." The room filled with laughter. I felt every eye turn toward me. Then Ethan leaned closer and whispered, "Smile. People are watching." I smiled because I refused to let anyone see me break. After the speech, several guests walked over to Lauren. "You did an amazing job. What a beautiful event." She accepted every compliment without correcting them. A few minutes later, Ethan's sister joined me near the dessert table. "I guess Lauren is the one keeping Ethan organized these days." Before I could answer, Ethan's mother added, "Ethan works so hard. Maybe he just needs more support at home." Neither woman had any idea that I had planned every detail they were enjoying. Their words stung, but I stayed quiet. A little later, I stepped into the hallway to catch my breath. That's when I overheard 2 of Ethan's coworkers talking. I heard Natalie almost ruined the anniversary dinner. "Really?" "Yeah." Ethan said Lauren stepped in and saved everything. I froze. He hadn't just taken credit for my work. He had turned me into the failure. When I walked back into the dining room, Ethan was speaking quietly to our son. "If your mother gets emotional," he said, "don't let her make a scene." Our son looked uncomfortable. After Ethan walked away, he quietly said, "I'm sorry, Mom." I squeezed his hand. "It's okay." I wasn't staying silent because I was afraid. I was waiting. As Ethan enjoyed the attention, I noticed something strange. The restaurant manager kept checking his phone. Several staff members whispered nervously near the security office. Then the manager looked directly at me and gave the smallest nod. At that moment, I knew the truth was finally about to reveal itself. I looked back at the guests, pretending nothing had changed, but inside I felt strangely calm. The hardest part was over. I had survived the insults. Now all I had to do was wait. What nobody in that room knew was that I already had something Ethan could never explain away. 2 weeks before the anniversary dinner, I had stopped by the restaurant to confirm the final seating chart. While speaking with the manager, I noticed Lauren asking one of the employees to change the presentation slides. My name had disappeared from the opening screen. At first, I thought it was an honest mistake. Then I watched Ethan walk over to her. He smiled and quietly said, "Leave it that way." He didn't know I was standing just around the corner. I didn't confront him. Instead, I asked the restaurant manager a simple question. "Do your security cameras record the banquet hallway?" He looked surprised. "Yes, they do." "And how long do you keep the footage?" "About 30 days. I thanked him and left without saying another word. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself the same question. Why would my own husband erase me from our anniversary? The next morning I started paying closer attention. I saved every email about the event. I kept every receipt. I downloaded every text message between Ethan, Lauren, and the restaurant staff that involved planning. The more I collected, the clearer the picture became. Ethan wasn't making careless mistakes. He was rewriting the story before the night had even arrived. Whenever someone complimented him, he accepted it. Whenever someone asked about me, he changed the subject. Whenever Lauren received praise, neither of them corrected anyone. It wasn't an accident. It was a plan. So I stayed quiet. If I had confronted Ethan at home, he would have denied everything. If I had argued during dinner, everyone would have called me emotional. Facts speak louder than anger. That's exactly what I intended to use. I wasn't gathering evidence because I wanted revenge. I wanted the truth. There was a big difference. Around that time I reached out to someone I trusted more than almost anyone. His name was David Reynolds, the executive director of the nonprofit where I had worked for years. David had guided me through difficult situations before. He believed in solving problems with patience instead of shouting. After listening to everything, he folded his hands and looked at me. "Natalie," he said calmly, "don't accuse anyone until the facts can speak for themselves." "I don't want to fight." "I know," he replied. "You want the truth to stand on its own." He helped me organize every email, every receipt, and every message in chronological order. Nothing was exaggerated. Nothing was edited. Everything could be verified. Before I left his office, he gave me one final piece of advice. "When the moment comes, don't interrupt them. Let them finish telling their version first." I nodded. "They'll bury themselves?" He smiled gently. "Most people do." Back at the restaurant, Ethan looked happier than I had seen him in years. Guests surrounded him with compliments. Lauren stood proudly beside him, smiling as though she belonged there. Neither of them realized that every confident smile was bringing them closer to the moment they could no longer hide behind words. Across the room, the restaurant manager quietly walked out of the security office carrying a tablet. He glanced toward me once. Then he started walking toward Ethan. The room slowly became quiet as the restaurant manager stopped beside Ethan. "Excuse me, sir," he said politely. "Before the evening continues, there's something you need to see." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" The manager held up the tablet. "Our security system recorded something important during today's preparations. I believe everyone deserves to see it." A nervous silence spread across the room. Ethan forced a laugh. "I'm sure it's nothing." "I don't think it is," the manager replied. He tapped the screen. The first video appeared. It showed Ethan standing with Lauren near the presentation computer before guests arrived. His voice was clear. "Take Natalie's name off the opening slide," he said. "Leave mine and yours." Lauren hesitated. "Are you sure?" He smiled. "Trust me." Gasps filled the room. Nobody spoke. The manager played another recording. This one showed Ethan laughing in the hallway. "Natalie always does the work," he said. "She doesn't need credit. She'll stay quiet like always." My heart hurt hearing those words. Not because they surprised me, because everyone else had finally heard them too. Ethan quickly stepped forward. "That's out of context." The manager calmly opened another file. "I also have copies of the planning emails." He handed several printed pages to Ethan's sister. She looked down. Every reservation, every payment, every schedule, every vendor confirmation. All of them carried my name. The final page showed every deposit had been paid from my personal account. Lauren lowered her head. She couldn't even look at me. Ethan tried again. "This is being misunderstood." David stepped forward for the first time that evening. "There is nothing confusing about verified evidence," he said calmly. "The documents, emails, and recordings all tell the same story." One by one, guests who had laughed earlier became completely silent. Ethan's mother stared at him. "You told us Natalie barely helped." He couldn't answer. His sister slowly folded the papers. "So you lied to all of us." Even our children looked shocked. Emma walked over and hugged me. "I'm so sorry, Mom." Daniel looked directly at his father. "You made us believe she was the problem." Lauren quietly picked up her purse. "I'm leaving," she whispered. Nobody tried to stop her. The celebration everyone had admired only minutes earlier had become a room full of uncomfortable truth. No one applauded. No one defended Ethan. The only thing anyone could hear was the soft music still playing in the background. I looked at Ethan one last time. "I never wanted to embarrass you," I said quietly. "I only wanted you to tell the truth." He lowered his eyes. For the first time in years he had nothing to say. I picked up my coat and walked toward the exit. Several relatives stopped me to apologize. "I should have believed you. We were wrong." "I'm sorry." I thanked them, but I didn't stay. Some apologies arrived too late. Outside, the cool evening air felt lighter than it had in years. I realized I wasn't walking away from one dinner. I was walking away from years of being invisible. Ethan was left inside facing the consequences of his own choices. His reputation wasn't destroyed by me. It was destroyed by the truth. I spent the following months rebuilding my life with people who valued honesty instead of appearances. For the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful. I learned something that night I'll never forget. The loudest person in the room doesn't always own the truth. Sometimes the truth only needs one honest moment to be heard. If you've ever been embarrassed by someone you loved, I want you to remember this. Your dignity doesn't disappear because someone else tries to take it from you. Please share your own story in the comments because someone reading it may need that encouragement today. Subscribe if you believe respect should always come before pride. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Standing up for yourself is never easy, especially when the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you. If you've experienced something similar, subscribe and become part of this community. Let me know this story meant something to you by clicking hype. And tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I truly enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. Thank you for spending your time with me today.